all about the first video in a new series I'm launching, which is all about the different stitches that I use when I create a Wildscape. They'll be listed under a playlist called the Wildscape Texture Library, so you can refer at any time. And I'm going to start with one of the easiest things I do. Now, most of the time we make a drizzle stitch, we're making it on fabric. You know, sometimes the fabric is stretched in a hoop. We put the needle down and put it in a pincushion. But I like to make them differently. And the reason I like to do them like this is because then I can build up a whole bunch of drizzle stitches that I can use whenever I want. So let me turn the camera around and show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so obviously we're going to need some needles, some yarn, pair of scissors. Now, you can make your drizzles with whatever fiber that you love. If you like embroidery floss, that's great. Pearl cotton, that's great. I often will use a fingering or lace weight yarn, but drizzles, I kind of like them when they're thick. So I'm going to use, I think this is probably a DK weight. Now, one of the fun things for me about doing drizzles this way, or doing any off the hoop kind of stitch, or off the fabric I should say kind of stitch, is you do not have to cut it off of your yarn. All right, you're only going to use as much as you want. Now I'm using a doll needle here, so I have a little bit more room to hold things. You're going to start with a tail. Don't worry about a knot in anything yet. Just leave a little tail, and I just pinch it against the needle like this. And then it's just like if you were doing a traditional drizzle where it's in the fabric, okay? You're just going to be casting on the stitch. So you are going to be pulling your thread out, and I just kind of make a little loop and cast it on this way. You might find a different method that works for you. You're only casting on in one direction. So this is like the simplest dimensional embroidery stitch that you can do. By dimensional, I mean it's coming up off the fabric, okay? And you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. It doesn't matter how you get it on there. It's just that it makes this little loop that's kind of like this, okay? And it's crisscrossed there. So whatever works for you to get that on there. Now, if you want your drizzles to be all the same height, go for it. Count your cast on stitches, but I don't do that. I'm usually doing this sort of thing while I'm watching TV, and I can look around and not pay attention to counting how many stitches. I mean, sometimes it's important to me, but usually because I'm building these components ahead of time, I am just going ahead and casting these on until I decide. And now it is going to squish together, okay, when you pull it through. So that's not very long of a drizzle. Maybe I want one that's a little bit longer. I'm just going to do this a little bit more. Now I could fill the whole needle and I could get a really nice long drizzle. You can use really long needles. I can get really long drizzles, and I've done that. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is make sure that, like, a needle like this would probably be, this is a 2 millimeter. This would be too big to use with embroidery floss unless you were probably using 2, 6, so 12 threads. So a skein has got 6 threads in it. I would use 12 if I wanted to use something this big. So make sure, because if your fiber going through the hole is, if there's a big discrepancy in the size difference, it's going to flop around. It's not going to do what you want. All right, so if this is as long as I want my drizzle, and I keep in mind it's going to connect, or it's going to, push in there, it's going to shrink. There we go, that's the word. Okay, I want to come past that, because that's going to go through just like the regular way of doing it. I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra so I can tie a knot. And see, I still have all this, I don't have those little scraps around, which I really like. Although this is a good way to use up scrap yarns. If you have just, a yard of some kind of yarn or fiber left, make some drizzles. Okay, rethread your needle. And now you're going to pull it off, just like before. Now you've got a drizzle, and you can tie a knot. And there you go. How cool is that? There's no fabric involved. Now, if I have a wildscape that I'm working on and I wanted to add it in, I can tuck it in there. The other thing I will sometimes do is I'll have just a scrap of felt and I'll just start pulling them through, and you can knot them on the other side. But if you're not sure, what I'll do before I use it in something, see, these guys aren't knotted off yet. So I will just pull it through the felt and decide, okay, do I want more? I can add one more in there. And then I have these little, component bundles that are ready to go. So maybe I wanted to add a big piece over here. Now this is ready to go. I could stitch that on. So when people ask me what I'm working on during the day, and I tell them I'm building components for Wildscapes, this is what I mean. I'm building all these individual drizzles and other stitches that I can then put together on little bits of felt that I can later add into a Wildscape. These little guys don't look like much on their own, right? They just kind of flop around. But just imagine hundreds of these put together with a lot of other components. They'd become bushes or mossy hillsides or just wild areas that you might imagine walking through if you could shrink down and walk through a wildscape. If you want to see how I use them in some of my finished art, I will link to a couple of other videos down below. Let me know what you think of doing stitches without a piece of fabric and saving them so you can use however you want at a later date.